Hey guys, I am Katie from Mitzik Creek Farm, and I am so excited to be doing this collaboration with Delcy from A Life of Heritage and other homesteading families on YouTube. We are talking about the most important tips that we have for people who are just getting into goats. And my big tip is, and this only applies if you're not buying full-grown goats, but if you are getting baby goats, bottle babies or freshly weaned babies, if you're getting young little goats, you want to start off by making sure that you set those rules for them and you don't have any flexibility in them. I'm talking about things like if we have a rule, our goats are big. They're Saanen wethers, so they are massive. They are bigger than our Great Dane. They are much bigger than my daughter, whose goats they are. She's about 90 pounds and 16 years old. They are much bigger than her. They go up beyond her waist. Their backs are well beyond her waist, probably closer to her armpit. And so we knew that they would get big when they were little. We got them as bottle babies when they were about a week old. And we started off with they are not allowed to jump on people. We can cuddle them, we can hug them, we can pick them up when they're small enough, but no jumping. And that really has saved us because these boys could really do a lot of damage. Here, Mr. Green is about to jump up in these trees here. We had a storm go through and pull down or blow down tons of trees. So they are they're eating off of these limbs that we couldn't quite get to without shaving everything off. So we're letting them clean that up, and then we're gonna clean up the branches and everything. Anyways, so our really big is if you don't want them to do it when they are adults, train them when they're little not to do it. Kind of like with a dog. You don't want your dog to jump, so you start as a puppy and tell them no and make sure that they don't jump when they're little. And it's so much easier than when they're full size and have tons of energy and all of that kind of stuff. So just off the top of my head, some of the rules that we had. Now our goats are 3 years. They just turned 3. So they're now finally full grown. But some of the rules we had off the top of my head for when they were babies is no jumping, absolutely no jumping, no biting. My daughter doesn't mind if they're nibbling her hair and that kind of stuff, but definitely no biting or anything like that. To be respectful of your space, if you want to pet them, let them know, but definitely we have some things we do that we've learned that we taught them when they were little to so that they're respectful of your space and not just all over you as soon as you're in there. They are, especially as they get older, they seem to be a lot better about respecting your space and everything. They know if we have snacks or treats or whatever, that we will not give that to them if they are right in our business. So their goats are definitely food driven, so that is something that is very, very helpful. Now, something else that is super important is have the proper fencing. Right here we just have 4-strand high tensile electric fence for our goats. We have found that works great because our goats are big. That isn't going to be great for Nigerian dwarfs or smaller ones. It is even good for young lambs when we have kidding season here, or lambing season here, because the way it's off of the bottom, I don't know if you can see that well, but the lambs could very easily just crawl right out underneath. This is, if we were to put the lambs in this area, this is the bachelor pad, so our Saanens are in here and our rams are in here. And this works great for these guys. If we were to, let's say, put in a smaller goat or a younger goat, I probably would add 2 more strands to this fence. And high tensile electric fence is in my opinion, the way to go, because it's the most economical. And once a goat learns that the electric fence, they don't want to touch it, they really aren't going to continue to try to touch it. But prior to this, we had all sorts of different types of fence. We were just kind of using what we had on hand, and that was like horrible. We had some awesome chain link fence, and Mr. Green, the one right there, is part alpine. And what do alpine goats do? They climb. So he saw that chain link fence as his playground. So my second, and as they got older, Mr. Blue, the purebred Saanen, he could not get out of the fence. And so we'd have one goat on one side yelling and the other goat on the other side yelling. One wanted to play, one wanted to not be left behind. And so then that's when we switched to high tensile, and we've not had any issues since then with them getting out. And it is working great for us. I even have pumpkins here. I'm not sure if you can see this. These are, we have a pumpkin patch and Christmas tree farm here, and so I decided to plant our gourds and our minis along the fence so that we didn't need to weed whip along here, and it is working great. They have not bothered any of the plants because they know that if they hit that lower strand, they're going to get shocked. So it is definitely, if you have goats, that's what goats are notorious for, is getting out. So if you have goats, you want to make sure that you have the proper things in place before you actually have your goats here. I really recommend 6 strands of high tensile, because that will keep in and keep out anything you don't want in or out, as long as you have power. And my third tip is make sure you're aware of what your goats can eat and can't eat, and what is toxic to goats. There's an awesome website, it's called Fiasco Farms, and they have a list of all the things that are toxic and not toxic. And I'd recommend you research and see what's in your area. They have lilacs on their list, but these types of lilacs, it's French lilacs that goats are toxic to goats, and not whatever type these are. So I would really recommend you look into that. Make sure you're aware of what is going to be in their area, so that you aren't having a very, very sick and possibly dead goat on your hands. Be aware. There are quite a few common things that they are allergic to that are very common in our area. Cherry trees. Any type of stone fruit, the leaves, once they start wilting, are toxic to ruminants. I never knew that. And so we have a list, and my daughter has it bookmarked on her phone. I have it bookmarked on my phone, just so that we can refer to them. So if we find something, if we have something in the house that we want to give them as a scrap, if we're uncertain that they can have it, we are able to just pull it up and double check. So make sure that the stuff you're giving to your goats, they can actually have. So that was my third tip. My fourth and final tip is that goats are browsers. They are not grazers like sheep are. So that is why in this pen is, oh boy, I don't remember off the top of my head. It's, I want to say, half of an acre. We have trees and we have like pasture. And the reason for that is because we have both sheep, we have our rams in here, and we have goats in here. Goats love to eat branches and the brush and that kind of stuff, where goats will eat like the grass and the weeds and that kind of stuff. So goats will eat up and sheep will eat down. They're great when putting them together in a pen, if you want to keep that pen eaten down nice. But you need to make sure that your goats are getting plenty of browse. So if you, let's say, have them on a dry lot, every once in a while, bring them some branches. Find a tree cutter in your area who has a whole bunch of limbs to get rid of, and say, hey, would you want to drop these off so that I can give them to my goats? That's free food, and they absolutely love it. So if you notice here, like that's eaten all the way up, probably 8-9 feet up in the air. It's eaten too. All of our trees in this pen are completely eaten. And one thing we like to do on our farm is to rotate them. So if you go and you look, the area behind them, we have not moved them into that pen yet this year. We'll be moving them within the next week or so, I would say. And that's where they're going to eat next, and they're going to eat all of that brush going up. And so they're great groundskeepers, but you need to make sure that you're not just letting them loose in your yard and expecting them to mow the lawn, because that's not what goats do. So those are my 4 tips for having goats on your property, for starting with goats. We are very lucky with our goats. We got Saanens because we loved the temperament, we loved the mellowness of them, and we have not had any of those horror stories of people pulling in the car and the goat climbs up it or anything like that. We will let them out if we're in the yard so that they can go and they can browse on the trees and all that kind of stuff, but we have not had any issues. I believe it's because from when they were little, we made it clear that they are not to go near the cars. We made it clear they're not allowed to jump on people, they're not allowed to bite, all of that kind of stuff. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next time. I'm going to post all the other participants of this collaboration in the comments below, and you can go check out their videos as well and get some new tips for goats. See you next time.